All right, well, this is Gary Trendle, Chair of the Hopkinton Planning Board. I hereby call our meeting, our August 29th, 2022 meeting to order. This open meeting is of the Hopkinton Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with the previously signed and act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension of the remote meeting provisions of Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The new law has two major parts. First, the new law allows public bodies to continue providing live, adequate alternative means of public access to the deliberation of the public body instead of holding meetings in a public place as openly and physically accessible to the public. Second, the new law authorizes all members of the public body to continue participating in meetings remotely. For this meeting, the planning board is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's web meeting calendar and the board's agenda, identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting is being broadcast by HCAM to multiple channels. Please note this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. In fact, all of us are. All supporting materials have been provided by members to the members of this body are available on the town's website via the web meeting calendar unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. With regards to public comment, not every agenda item will feature public comment. For items with public comments, after members have spoken, the chair will afford an opportunity for the public. Please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and begin with your name and address. You will be afforded 3 minutes for your questions and comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. So, members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Mary Larson Marlowe here.
Rob Benson.
Rob Benson here.
Jane Moran.
Jane Moran present.
Paul Ostrander. Paul, you're on mute.
Paul Ostrander present.
And Gary Trendle is here. I don't think we have anyone else. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Gelsich.
John Gelsich present.
Ms. Pemberton.
Stephanie Pemberton present.
And I don't think we have anybody from Mbta. Do you know if Phil was planning to call in? John?
He didn't say he wasn't going to, so I'm going to email him now and see if he's joining.
All right. Well, don't email him quite yet because let's talk quickly. And I guess, should I go ahead and open the hearing before we do this? Before we talk about this?
Hearing's already open. We just continued it.
Right. Of course. And we have no new hearings to open. So to Jane's point earlier, we only have 4 voting members on this hearing. So unfortunately, I'm trying to think if it's worth continuing and just not voting, which would then rely upon the members that are not here to go back and watch the footage, and then we could continue at a later point in time. Or if we want to be a little bit more, we're not going to vote either way. We could just continue it to our next meeting. Is that, John, are those our 2 options? I think those are really our only 2 options here.
So the first one was to do what? So the only option really is to continue it.
What's that?
The only option is to continue it.
Well, we could in theory have some discussion about it.
No, because you don't have a quorum.
We have to have a quorum on this specific topic.
Yeah, because if Jane's recusing herself, she's not on the board right now.
Okay. Well, then I guess that simplifies our options. Roy, I apologize about this, but unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about it right now.
Through the chair. Next meeting is September 19th.
Okay. Roy, are you okay with us continuing this to September 19th?
Well, given the fact that you don't have enough people for a quorum, I don't see what other option we have. Otherwise, really, there's nothing you can do that's meaningful.
Yeah.
Phil?
Okay.
Yeah, I concur. If they don't have a quorum, you know, what I mean, we need to be in front of a full board or a 5-member board. So we'll have to push it off, I guess.
Yeah, I apologize.
Not your fault.
Well, I did, I guess I could have, the last person texted me earlier today, so,
Don't worry. It's
what it
okay.
is. So,
It is what
I
it
guess
is.
on
My
that
favorite
note-
line. It is what it is.
On that note, I will entertain a motion. Oh, John, can we vote on continuing it? As we don't have a quorum?
I believe if you don't have a quorum, it automatically continues to the next meeting.
Okay. So then we don't need to vote on continuing it.
No, and
If I could interject, could it be possible for the chair to say, given the fact that we don't have a quorum, this meeting will have to get continued to September 19th?
Sure, seems reasonable. All right, well, as the chair, and given that we do not have quorum on this hearing, we are going to have to continue it until our September 19th meeting. We will make sure to put it at the front or at the least to the start of the agenda. And hopefully we'll be able to go ahead and get through the rest of the hearing for you.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone have a happy, healthy Labor Day. Thank you.
All right.
You as well.
So, thanks, Roy.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, Roy.
Good night.
All right. So then, on that note, we've got we've got a handful of administrative items here. John, do you want to go ahead and walk us through the various board appointments that we need to make?
we have Zach, Design Review Board, and the Planning Board rep for the TCMC. Currently up. So all Design Review Board members serve for a 1-year term. Zach, we have to appoint the Planning Board representative and I believe 5 seats or 4 seats, 4 at-large seats. But we only have 2 applicants. So we will have some vacancies. Design Review Board, we have, I think, 4 applicants for 5 seats. So we'll have a vacancy there as well. So hopefully somebody will apply to both of those boards in the coming weeks, and we can appoint them at a later meeting. And for the Design Review Board, I'm trying to, I had this written down and now I don't have it. Because Design Review Board is unique and we have to appoint them to certain seats.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But I can't find the list that I made. So if you want to get to Zach first, I can try and find that.
So, sorry, so you want to start with Zach?
Sure. I mean, yeah, Zach's first on the agenda anyway.
And all right, so we have 2 applicants for 6 seats total. And sorry, I am trying to read off my phone here just to make sure I get the people correct.
Would you like me to read their names?
That would be great if you could.
So we have Nisha Nanaware Karate, who is currently serving on Zach, and Madhu Chandrasekhar, who's also currently serving on Zach.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
Well, they've both been great on the Zach, so I would recommend reappointing.
All right, and I will just take this as a moment, take a moment as well to say that we've got a number of open seats. Zach is a great way for people to engage. It's a little more friendly environment than some of our other boards. It's a little bit more informal. And traditionally, that's been a really good way for folks that maybe have longer term interests in planning board. Zach is a really good way to get to know our bylaws a little bit better. So I would encourage all of us, if we know of any potentially interested candidates, we can still go ahead and vote on the 2 tonight. But if you have thoughts on other folks that might be, that might have interest in Zach, then now would be a good time to reach out to them.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Just also want to mention that these seats that we're appointing tonight are 2-year terms.
All right. So, on that note, I will entertain a motion to appoint Nisha Narwar Kamrade and
Madhu Chandrasekhar.
thank you. Appreciate that. To the Zoning Advisory Committee.
So moved.
Rob, second.
Any further discussion? Yes, John.
So I think it should be, sorry, I should have written these motions down. Appoint them to a 2-year at-large term.
All right, so we have a friendly amendment to appoint 2 previously mentioned folks to a 2-year at-large term.
Accepted. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Does that work for you? Rob, you good with that?
Yes.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe. Yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane Marin, yes.
Paul?
Paul Ostrander, yes.
Gary Trindle's a yes. Well, the vote is unanimous. That carries. So, moving forward to the, Johnny, you ready for the Design Review Board seats?
Yep.
And applicants?
Yep.
All right. You want to go ahead and
Sure.
read through those?
So Design Review Board is a 5-member board, 2 alternate seats. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 applicants. All of them currently serve on Design Review Board. It is Jeff Doherty, Jeanette Thompson, Sue Ellen Stoddard, and Tiana Mui. So Design Review Board is a little unique in that Zach only has board representatives and at-large and alternate seats. Design Review Board has 5 members, 2 alternates, but each member has to be fitting of certain qualifications. So the qualifications are chairperson of the planning board or his or her designee, 1 person qualified by training and experience in the fine arts or landscape design, 1 person doing business in the town or a citizen at large, 1 member of the Historic District Commission or a designee of the planning board, and 1 person qualified by training and experience in the art of design professions.
So which one is Jeff applying for?
So they don't apply for a certain seat. It's the board's responsibility to name the applicants to these seats. And currently, Jeanette is the chairperson of the planning board or his or her designee. Sue Ellen Stoddard is the 1 person qualified by training and experience in the fine arts or landscape design. Tiana is 1 person qualified by training and experience in the art of design professions. And I believe Jeff could fit in either of the other 2, 1 person doing business in the town or a citizen at large, or 1 member of the Historic District Commission or a designee of the planning board.
So I'm going to recommend that Jeff be the Historic District representative because the member at large is going to be easier to find someone else if necessary. Does that make sense to folks?
Absolutely. And then Tiana, I believe, was in the art or design profession, and that's another tough one to fill sometimes. So
Yeah. Okay. Can we still do these all in one lump sum,
Yes.
John, if I read them off accordingly?
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to entertain a motion to appoint Jeff Doherty to the Design Review Board as a member, as a representative of the Historic Commission. Sue Ellen Stoddard as a member representing landscape design profession. Tiana Mui, did I say that right?
Yep.
Okay, Tiana Mui is art and design professional. And then Jeanette Thompson, I know she's currently acting chair.
No, sorry, designee of the planning board chair.
Designee of the planning board.
And Jeff would be the designee of the planning board as well.
Oh, he would be. Okay.
Yeah, because I don't know if he's a member of the Historic District Commission.
I don't think he is.
So he would be, so it's Historic District Commission or designee of the planning board.
Okay.
Okay.
So then I'm going to revise that. Jeff does as a designee of the planning board. Jeanette as a designee of the planning board. Sue Ellen Stoddard as a landscape design professional, and Tiana Mui as art and design professional.
So moved.
Rob Benson, second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Paul?
Paul Ostrander, yes.
Gary Trindle is a yes as well. Motion carries.
Through the chair.
Yes.
When we were doing zoning advisory committee, we skipped over the planning board representative position. I did not call that out. That is Mary currently.
Yes. Mary,
Yes.
are you comfortable continuing as the planning board representative? Of the zoning board?
I had been discussing taking on a different committee, discussing this with John, and I can't remember the outcome of our discussions because I can't do Wednesday nights, and I don't know if that's a time for meetings for one of the possibilities that I was looking
Right. So coincidentally, because we haven't been able to fill this board up, before I could get you to apply, it filled up.
at. Hey, well, there you
So
go. So it's
they're
off the
on their
table
way.
then. That's good. Okay, then I'll do Zach.
Thank you, Mary. You know the Zach better than all of us. So,
At this point.
and on that note, I will entertain a motion to appoint Mary Lester Marlowe as the planning board designee for zoning advisory committee.
So moved.
Rob Benson, second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Mary, I'm going to put you on the spot. How do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane Moran, yes. And thank you, Mary.
Paul?
Paul Ostrander, yes.
And Gary Trindle is an enthusiastic yes. I'm glad to have you stay on that board, Mary. So thank you. That committee, I should say. The last one is the Tcmc Planning Board Representative. This is the Trails Committee, Trails Construction and Maintenance Committee, excuse me. This role was previously done by Dave Paul. And Dave, as well as the members of that committee, have recommended Fran DeYoung serve as that representative. Fran is not here tonight, but I did text with him earlier, and he is willing and able to serve that role. Is there anybody else that has any interest in this position?
I'm always interested in the trails, but I'm not interested in another committee membership.
All right. Well, then on that note, I will entertain a motion to appoint Fran DeYoung as the planning board representative to the Trails Construction and Maintenance Committee.
So moved.
Rob Benson, second.
All right. I'm assuming no further discussion. Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Paul?
Paul Ostrander, yes.
Gary Trindle is a yes. Thank you, Fran. All right. Mbta Communities Update. This is, well, hopefully you're all familiar with what this is. This is the state program designed to encourage denser housing in communities that are near Mbta train stations. So some activity going on in this front. So we thought it might be worth having John give us a quick update as to that initiative. So John?
Yeah, so they released final regulations for this, or final guidelines. And there's really two significant changes that impact Hopkinton. One, Hopkinton is being named an adjacent community, not an MBTA community, because we don't have a train station within our borders. So that changes how many total units we need to zone the district for. Before, I believe the calculation came out to 997 units, and now we are down to the measly 750 units, which is the minimum for this district. So we have to do, I think it's 15% of our total units, or 10% of our total units, or 750. Basically 750 being the max, being the minimum. So if yours is under 750, you got to do 750. And so I think ours is under 750, so they're making us do 750. Total units that has to be zoned for, not that have to be constructed, just would have to be zoned to be on these areas. The second major change is that the district doesn't necessarily have to be within half a mile of the train station. It can be anywhere in the town's borders. So that opens up a lot more possibilities for where we can locate this district in town.
So, John, just to talk us through a little bit more detail, I think the second point there is pretty clear. That just means that we need to have a certain number of dense housing units somewhere. But talk me through what that means to have it zoned. Because, I mean, in theory, we could just do an overlay somewhere in town that might not ever be built out that allows for that. And if it ever happens, it happens. But
yep. Yes.
How does that actually, and I guess my other question is, how many units do we have currently that would qualify or count towards this 750 units?
None. So the district, like you said, could be placed anywhere really and be built out if it's built out. We need to do a little bit more digging and see what the actual exemptions are, but you can't do wetlands, you can't do conservation land, you can't do that type of stuff, but otherwise you can zone areas for development. And the requirement to be compliant with this program is that you have the zoning in place, not that people are actually developing the units, just that the zoning is in place, and the zoning is going to get reviewed by the state. So if we try and get too cute with it, they might reject it and say, no, you need to, it's not compliant because X, Y, and Z. But as long as it's 50 acres, 15 units per acre, then it should be compliant and, not within undevelopable land. We don't have to worry about water and sewer. It doesn't have to be in areas with water and sewer. That's not a requirement. Does not have to be, I don't believe it has to be within walking distance or pedestrian connected pathways to the transit station. So it does open it up to different areas for us.
And I'll open this up to questions everyone in a minute. I'm not trying to monopolize here, but so John, what are our different sort of vehicles or pathways to meet this? I mean, there's overlays. I mean, we could determine a new zone in town. We could like what are kind of the different levers that we can pull to accommodate this new requirement?
So I think you got pretty much most of it. We can do a new overlay similar to the Osma district or parts of the Osma district. So take that back. The hotel overlay district. You can just do an overlay over a base zoning district. Osma kind of is a base zoning district. You could do that as well. You can just change the zoning for a certain area at a base level. So instead of being A district or RA or IA or something like that, it'll just be Mbta zoning district. You can do an overlay district, like I said before, which you can do two kinds of overlays. One that's located in a certain area. So say in the downtown, in the BD district, you can have a portion of the BD district overlaid with the MBTA district, and then that can be where they can do MBTA development. Or you can have what's called a floating overlay, which just is kind of out there. And if somebody has a 10-acre parcel somewhere in town, and they say this would be great for an MBTA zoning type thing, you might be able to do that. I don't know if that would work because the zoning has to be by right. So usually those floating overlays are done by like special permit. So that might be a tricky situation. So we may just want to designate areas in town that have an overlay. And yeah, I think those are really the three options.
So this is going to be popular.
Yeah.
So through the chair, could I make a comment here?
Sure.
So to me, this is something like I honestly believe there'll be no support across the town for this district. And to get, like, when you look at the amount of funding that it is tied to, it's like over 10-year period, less than half a percentage point of the town's budget over a 10-year period. This is like trying to force a poison pill on a town. Like, think of the impact to our school system if this ever did get built, like for measly, just basically no additional dollars to the town or additional dollars for a small project. This is something that we should never even, like, never zone for ever. Like, that's my point, my perspective. I would never vote to support this district.
Yeah, I think you raised some good points, Rob, and I think there's a question of, is it worth it? I would challenge part of your perspective, though, and I'd say that if we write the overlay in the right way, this could be something that actually might be beneficial to the town, whether it be through the types of units that we have. We know that affordable housing, obtainable housing is a big challenge. We know that people that live in one-bedroom apartments, are more likely to frequent restaurants and establishments. And I'd argue that if we get ahead of it, then we might be able to do something in an area of which we can actually make this a benefit. I don't know the details, but I just personally, for me, I'm not quite willing to say this is a horrible thing that no one will go for. And I think that in the spirit of many of the housing challenges that we have in Massachusetts, I understand the intent of this, as well as the desire to do some things that encourage, more people to take other modes of transportation. So I don't want to sort of, I don't know the answers yet. There's a lot to do here, but I'll stop talking there and let other people share their perspectives. But I'd encourage proactiveness and an open mind as we go into this. And if the decision is that as a town that this isn't something we want to support and that we're willing to walk away from the dollars associated with it, then that might be the right option. But I don't think, from my perspective, we don't know enough quite yet to make that determination. Jane?
Yes, through the chair. Thank you. There is a lot to unload here, that's for sure. And a couple of questions I have just to clarify. I'm not sure, but if we could take the current Osmond district, say from Legacy Farms, and parcel out some of that and combine it with another parcel, say on the South Street or Lumber Street area, is that a possibility to take two existing zones and tag them as this MBTA? And my second question is this, to Rob's point, is this something that, I know you said we should consider it, but is it something that we would be forced to do or not? Is the choice ultimately up to the town, or is it not?
Great questions, Mary. I will defer to John on both of those. Excuse me. Great questions, Jane. Sorry, Jane.
That's right. Jane, Mary.
Mary Jane.
I'll answer your first question first. The districts that currently exist do not comply with the regulations, specifically the density requirement. You have to have 15 units per acre density allowable by right. So everything in the Osmond is allowed by a special permit. So right off the bat, you couldn't take a piece of the Osmond and say, oh, well, this works. Also, the density in Osmond is not 15 units per acre. So you theoretically could rezone a portion of the Osmond to comply, but it's already developed. So, that's a possibility. The other thing is the Osmond,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The whole Osmond district is essentially spoken for. Any land that's not developed is under a restrictive land covenant. So you'd have to have a piece of land that's already developed. And I don't know if the state would come back and be like, no, that doesn't work. We can definitely investigate it, but I don't know if it would work that way. But as of right now, they don't comply. So we couldn't just go and draw a square around a chunk of land and be like, that's our MBTA district, because and the same thing with the lumber street. It doesn't currently comply with the regulations. The second question you had is, are we going to be forced to do this? As of right now, no. And I haven't heard any rumblings that we will at some point in time. I'm just saying, as of right now, no, we're not required to do it. We would just, as to Rob's point, lose funding from 3 sources. Whether that funding is worth it or not is up to the town. But I think we need to go through the exercise to give the town the option to vote up or down.
Thank you.
But other than that, the state, as at this point, will not force us to do this zoning.
Okay, thank you.
Mary or Paul, thoughts, comments, questions?
Through the chair, I think it's important that we definitely learn more. I just think there's a lot more information, a lot more questions we have to ask, and it's very important to have an open mind going into this stuff, especially with severe housing shortage across the country and specifically in Massachusetts. So doesn't hurt to learn more. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Mary?
Yeah, I agree that the exercise needs to be done. Is this something that you want to have Zach work on this next year? And that doesn't, you don't have to answer that right now, but it's just a matter of if Zach should work on it, or if Zach knows that planning board is taking it. So it should be one or the other, so that they're clear.
Yeah, that's a good question, Mary. And I guess one more follow-up question for John before I at least share my perspective on it. But what are the timing? Any sort of timing recommendations from your end? I mean, how fast do we need to, number one, go through an assessment, look at options, and come back with a recommendation? And I guess just thinking that this is a zoning change. Zoning changes need to go through annual town meeting. Zoning changes to Mary's point, are generally done through Zach, of which the planning board can play a pretty substantial role if we so choose. But I'm wondering, is this something that needs to happen for town meeting next year? Or is this something that we can kind of put on the slow burner and slowly work towards it?
Yeah, so the deadlines are there's 2 different deadlines that we need to comply with to be in compliance until the district, or one really, until the district is adopted. So for an adjacent community, we need to have a action plan submitted. So just an action plan determining like how we're going to go about the process to bring this to town meeting by January 31st, 2023. So this January, we need to have an action plan. We need to have an application for district compliance, and that usually means it has to be adopted as zoning by December 31st, 2024. So either annual town meeting 2024, or somehow we schedule a special town meeting late 2024.
Okay. So essentially, I'm sorry, through the chair, that it's 2023 or 2024 town meeting, annual town meeting could do it. Likelihood of being able to present it for next town meeting is pretty slim, though. Yeah. Okay.
And also to that point, Mary, sorry to interrupt. We haven't really received like a model bylaw or anything like that, which we've kind of been promised by the state. So if we had something in hand, maybe we could get it to town meeting this year, but like without anything in hand, we haven't even really started the planning process because we're still just figuring out these regulations. We have a webinar about it on Thursday. Like they're still getting this information out. So we're not going to have really that much helpful information probably by town meeting, by the time we need to get something by town meeting.
Yep.
Okay. Super helpful. So my instinct is, so the only thing we've got to do by January of next year is have a quote plan of some kind, which I'm guessing can be relatively loose. It's going to require some discussion on our part, but to your point, John, we still don't even know enough about about what this entails. My thoughts is that I think this actually should go through Zach. And I'm a little cautious about that because I know that Zach already has a lot on their plate, but at the end of the day, this is what Zach is for. I think Zach is able to have a more of a constructive type of working session than oftentimes we can as a planning board. I contemplated whether we break out a subgroup to work on this, but it seems kind of silly to create a subgroup that would be doing the same thing that Zach should be doing. So, and I think to the point that the reality is that we've got annual town meeting 2024, at which point we would really need to put together a robust recommendation, even if that was to not move forward. But we've got a little bit of time. I think that it fits squarely within the responsibilities of Zach. Any thoughts, agreement, reaction? Yes, John.
And just, I think this is going to be done somewhat internally as well, just because usually Zach is looking at Hopkinton focused bylaws from the community. This is really a state issued thing. So I would imagine we're going to probably draft something and then bring that something to Zach to discuss rather than have Zach start from scratch.
And that makes sense to me, through the chair. It's, I think, well, first of all, putting a plan of action into place before January 31st is relatively easy, right? So I think any of us could draft a reasonable one and have it discussed at a planning board session. And then part of that could be handing it off to Zach. But having, I think, periodic check-ins, not necessarily presentations, but working sessions with planning board and Zach jointly, to further the discussions, I think would be helpful.
I think that's a great call, Mary. And I'll be the first to say that my thought is I will probably be joining more Zach meetings, specifically on this topic. And
I would encourage that, definitely.
The last thing I would say too is that, to all the discussion earlier, this is going to be regardless of what our recommendation is, this is going to be a tricky, messy project, and it's going to take a lot of public engagement. It's going to take a lot of work, but I'd also say that if people, just in general for the public that's out there, if people have strong interest in this, we've got a few more open seats on Zach. So, if you want to get involved, great. Here's an opportunity to get involved in something that could have a pretty substantial impact on the town.
And
can I just sorry, I just want to just for Marilyn Bezet. Marilyn, we had to continue the 83 East Main Street hearing because we don't have a voting quorum tonight. So that's been continued to September 19th. I'm assuming that's what you're on for, but just wanted to give you that note. We're going to be wrapping up, I think, relatively shortly, but we're not going to be talking about 83 East Main. All right. So Mbta communities.
One last question through the chair. So at the end of the day, a zoning change would require 2/3 vote at town meeting, which.
So just to interrupt on that point, I don't know if that's the case for this, because this is part of the Housing Choice Initiative, and the Housing Choice Initiative has a provision in it that allows zoning decisions at town meeting that impact housing to potentially be passed by a simple majority. I don't know if this will qualify under that, but it may. So I don't know if we can accurately say that it's definitely going to be a 2/3 majority needed.
So we don't know. Ultimately, we don't know yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping to get that answer out in this webinar on this Thursday.
And one last thing, I think just for the scale of so wherever, if this ever came to pass and there was zoning districts, like I look at my house, my house is on 3.5 acres, And if I all of a sudden could tear my house down and get it zoned to build 52 homes on 3.5 acres, there's no way it's not going to be built. And the long-term ramifications for Hopkinton and the school systems and taxes is just way higher than any funding we'd ever get from the sources that are at risk. I can't say that. I could say that as many times as I'm going to possibly say it, as long as this is discussed. So that's my point of view.
So just to clarify one point in there, the minimum parcel size for land within the MBTA district is 5 acres.
Okay, so I need to buy my neighbor's lot too and make it 100 acres.
I don't want the word to go around that anyone with 3.5 acres or less can. Or more can build.
Okay, so if I get up to 5 acres, I can.
Through the chair.
Yes, Mary.
And I was gonna mention this a little earlier too, but this is a unique scenario. It's going to be different than other zoning bylaw changes that we put forward at annual town meeting, because in almost all of those cases, although certainly there can be debate back and forth, in all of those cases, the planning board and likely the ZAC as well support the passage of such a bylaw. This particular bylaw may not be that case. I mean, we're obviously going to put forward something as beneficial as possible to the town if it were to pass, but I don't think that we're going to be necessarily advocating selling it as much as we have in the past for other types of zoning. Again, this is coming from the state as strongly encouraged, if not mandated. And it's not coming from us in the town as this is what we want to do. And that is, and I think that there's going to be strong feelings on both sides. And probably conflict within, each individual sometimes too, because I can see both sides of it. I can see, what Rob is talking about, the density. The density is hard to imagine in a town like Hopkinton, that kind of density. But at the same time, I really recognize the housing crisis and the outrageous prices that are out there, and that people can't find housing. So I'm conflicted myself. So I think it's going to be a very different situation, and the way we present it at town meeting is probably going to be very different than other types of zoning laws we have proposed in the past, which zoning changes. And that's that these are our choices. These are the pros. These are the cons. Here, this is, if it doesn't pass, this is the consequences to the town from the state. And these are the benefits, So I think that we're going to have to recognize that it's going to be one of those types of things, that it's not all cut and dried, very, very clear that it's like, this is the way to go. This is the best thing for the town. So anyhow, my opinion.
Can I ask another question for Rob? One sec, Jane. The apartment complex over by the Spoon 110 Grill, how does that not qualify? Because that is way more than 15 units per acre.
Did you ask me or John?
Oh, sorry, John. Sorry, Rob.
I can give it. I think I know why though too.
So John, the apartment complex over by the Spoon and 110 Grill, how does that not qualify for this?
It was done by a comprehensive permit, so right off the bat, it was not done by right. You cannot limit the bedroom count in a MBTA district. That limits the bedrooms to 2. You can't.
They have 3 bedrooms over there.
No, they're limited to 2 bedrooms. It's in their permit.
Are you sure?
Maybe a den.
Almost positive.
Not Legacy Farms, the
Madeira,
Lumber
or
Street.
whatever it's called now.
Madeira. Yep.
Madeira.
Or no, Windsor at Hopkinton now.
Oh, okay.
I'm virtually positive that there are 3 bedroom units over there. Anyways.
So, okay, then maybe if I'm wrong, they do limit the other ones to two bedrooms. So you can't limit bedrooms at all in the MBTA district. So it doesn't qualify on that as well. And the density is not high. So
That doesn't
three
meet the
different
density
things.
requirement?
It does not meet the density requirement.
It's not 15 per acre?
I don't believe so.
Oh, wow.
Is
I
that
don't-
because they have so much open space around it? I mean,
I
I don't know
believe
how you
so.
get more dense than that.
Yeah, I believe it's because there's so much land undeveloped around it.
Wow. All right, Rob, I'm starting to agree more and more with you.
I think there's
a
gonna,
4-story apartment building doesn't comply with this.
But
I don't
it's-
really know what does.
But you're looking at the density for the footprint. It's not the density for the piece of land. I mean, maybe it's close. Maybe it's like 13 units per acre. So it's close, but I don't believe it's 15 units per acre. And it's not by right. So, I mean,
Yeah, I understand.
Echo, it's
Aside
not
from that, there's still
involved.
reasons that it couldn't comply.
you could
Okay.
change the zoning to make it comply, and then whoever redevelops it at that point would be able to redevelop it to the MBTA regulations. But as it stands right now, it does not comply.
Got it. Got it. So that's an example where is if we wanted to, we could take that area and say, okay, we're going to do a MBTA overlay here. And if somebody wants to come in and tear it down and build something new that does comply, they're entitled by right to do so.
So one
That's a
thing-
generalization, but is that?
Yeah. So another thing that I had been talking about internally is that we'd have to look and see if this would be allowed, but potentially zoning the school areas as MBTA zoning, particularly Elmwood School, because there's that larger condo association nearby. It's near 495, and the town would own the land. So potentially, if it's zoned that way, the town could sell it when Elmwood School moves and use that money to offset costs by the development.
And now it's worth a lot more money because it can be developed in some way that.
I don't know if that would work. I don't know if that would be compliant, if the state would reject that, but that's something to look into.
we had that opportunity with Legacy Farms many years ago. We chose not to. We had the opportunity to buy the land and the town voted not to.
This wouldn't be buying the land. This would be already owning the land and rezoning the land the town
Yeah.
owns.
Okay.
All right, so we're not going to solve this tonight. More information to come. I think what's clear is number one, that we are going to be leaning in on Zach to Mary's point, come up with a recommendation, whatever that might be. And in the immediate term, what we do need to have is we need to have an action plan by January 31st of next year. I think John makes some interesting points. There might be some way to accommodate this in a way that is not going to result in 750 more units in Hopkinton. But I think there's a lot of work to do here, and let's let this work through its course, and we can go from there. Sorry, Jane, you wanted something else to add, Jane, and I realized I forgot about
It
you.
was just a minor comment. It just reminds me of the heated and heavy discussions we had over the marijuana discussions. Eventually, we got through that, and there was some sort of resolution at the end. It's just something we have to go through.
And I'll just add one other point too, but that I know that I've seen some other articles and things about how the state, many states actually are going to start pushing a lot harder for less local control over zoning. And I don't, doesn't mean that should change our course because it's not happening yet, but the rationale that allowing local governments to determine what's best can sometimes result in something that's less ideal for the greater population. And so I just throw that out there because I wouldn't be surprised if the state starts finding more ways to put pressure on communities, and in the same way that the Utilities Commission has ability to override a lot of things that are done on a local level. So I just encourage us to be open-minded to this. It's a problem. It's a challenge that's not going to go away. And I think the best thing we can do is be really, really thoughtful about how and if we're going to address it in some way. And I think that will give us the most options. And I think that if we do that, then we're going to be in the best position we can be in the long term. All right. I didn't see any meeting minutes from July 18th. Did I miss those? Nope. Okay. I just want to make sure. So on that note, I don't think we have anything else to go through tonight. Sorry. One last thing. And I guess hard to do this with only 5 of us, but we do need to schedule a joint meeting with the select board for the appointment of Dave Paul's backfill. And it'd be great if we could at least partially flush this out now. We don't have a meeting until September 19th. The select board has a planned meeting on September 13th. I'm just curious for the folks that are on the call, if we were to have that meeting on the September 13th, would that work?
Good for me.
Works for me.
I honestly don't know yet. My boy's AAU schedule starts up that week, so I don't know.
I will not be there. I'm on a flight at that time on 7 o'clock on that Tuesday.
Okay. So we've got 3 yeses, 1 maybe, and 1 no. John, let's just ask can you send out an email to the full planning board and just ask for confirmation if that date works? And at least that way we can hopefully get Elise, Ronnie, and Fran to weigh in, and we'll see where we land. I think that person wouldn't be able to vote on 83 East Main anyways, but this is where we start to run into challenges with fewer numbers. So I think if we can get that position filled sooner rather than later, that would be preferred. Anything else? I think that's it on our agenda. Mary?
Just wanted to comment that I'm glad that we're still doing remote, because I would not be attending tonight if we were in person, because I'm still quarantining. So it takes a long time to test negative.
Yeah. Thanks, Mary. And I hope you feel better soon. And I'm glad you're here tonight, because
Thank you.
You bring a lot of great perspective to the topics that we have. So thank you. Yes, John.
And to Mary's point, I was actually remote at a meeting for my town the other night. Just got an email yesterday that the chair who was at the meeting tested positive.
Oh my gosh.
So everyone at the meeting was exposed, and I luckily was not. So it works out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I don't think anyone on this board will complain about continuing remote, at least in some capacity. I think it'd still be nice periodically to get together face to face, and depends on the agenda and topics. But I think we're operating reasonably well remote. I think that for a lot of us, particularly those that travel and do other things, I think there's some really nice benefits, not to mention reduced risk of exposure. So, all right. On that note, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Rob, second.
And assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane Murren, yes.
Paul?
Oh, yes.
And Gary Trindle is a yes. Thank you all. 58 minutes, although we had to drop a hearing, but appreciate the conversation, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks.